What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown Podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration business owner. It's 2024. My name is Ben with Ironclad Restoration Marketing, where I help restoration business owners get more sales by getting their internet marketing right. I mentioned before, it's 2024. So if you're still signing those checks with 23, I can relate. I've done it about 25 times. But either way, we're moving on to a really good year. Hopefully everybody's on their way to improve off what they did last year. What better fitting way to kick off the Restoration Rundown podcast in January with a controversial subject in the restoration world. And I'm speaking of one of the most controversial subjects, and that's TPA, to do it or not to do it. And whatever side of the fence you're on, I think today's guest is going to help dispel some rumors about it and demystify the TPA and give you a path to success with TPA work, whether you choose to do it or not. His name is Cruce. He is from the Trifecta Growth Institute. I'm bringing him on right now. What's up, Rod? How you doing?
What's going on, Ben? Thanks for having me, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. I appreciate your time, Rod. Listen, I came across your article in CNR magazine recently, the TPA success algorithm. Now, the algorithm part drew my eyes to it right away because that's what we deal with all the time. We're wrangling algorithms. We're trying to capitalize on an algorithm with Google, with getting our people some really good results. But you had a really interesting article on a very controversial subject. On TPA, the TPA success algorithm. Before we dive into that, if Rod, you've been on the podcast before, so everybody's got a little bit of your background for any of the newbies that are joining us in 2024, or maybe missed the episode with Rod where we talked about Trifecta Growth Institute and how it helps restoration business leaders and owners with their business processes. Can you give us a quick background before we dive into this controversial subject, so maybe we can soften the blow a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Trifecta Growth Institute, we grow businesses by growing people. We founded it after selling a restoration company, one that took from being an unsuccessful, failing restoration company to being a top performer within about 15 months. And, one of the things within that was being able to get people trained and making sure that you have a success algorithm, not only for business, but for your culture. And, I took a lot of skill sets from my past where I owned a construction company, I owned a race company, I've owned an industrial defense company where we're doing data centers and wind tunnels and also training and management. So we took all those pieces of it and, also from my Green Beret background of running projects, $100 million projects overseas and different countries where resources are scarce, people are even less skilled. And we created Trifecta Growth Institute to help out business owners. And like I said, grow businesses by growing people. Yeah. So it's a little bit of background, a little condensed version, but yeah, thank you.
Today's not about you, Rod. It's about our friend Al, the algorithm of life, right? Whatever you're doing, the goal here is to figure out what the algorithm is and figure out how you can capitalize on it as a business and kind of to get a better understanding and a deeper understanding. Now, I understand by talking to you pre-show and talking to hundreds of restoration contractors over there, when it comes to TPA, you're either vehemently against it or you're in three buckets, right? You're vehemently against it. You love it and your processes are perfect and you're 80% of your business is coming from it, or it's a means to an end for maybe new guys starting out or somebody just breaking off on their own. Let's talk a little bit about TPA work and your article before we get into the nitty gritty of the algorithm.
Sure.
So with TPA work, why do you think there's so many buckets and it's so controversial? From your end, I know you're going to have a whole bunch of training on this coming up. What are your thoughts on the controversy with it and why people may be struggling when it comes to TPA?
It's a very open-ended question, and I wish I knew all the answers to it. But, from my perspective on it and talking to people, a lot of people get, it's too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right? Mm-hmm. And, I think a lot of business coaches and other people out there in the industry feel like TPA work is not as rewarding, as profitable as doing it on your own. And I think that whenever they, just like me, when I walk into a company or we start working with a company, one of the first things we look at is our revenue mix. If they're all heavily TPA, that's a vulnerability. And if they're all with one customer, that's a vulnerability. If you look at You're only on one section of the city. That could be a vulnerability in that piece of it. So you have to look at what your company is. And that's why I said, and I started that article out, to be or to not to be, because every company is different. And I do agree that you should not be all TPA. I think that's a vulnerability. And it's something, I mean, it almost crippled my business when I bought it because it was very heavily TPA. And like I think, if you read my article, How to Turn Around Failing Business, we had a large amount of percentage of our business. And when we got suspended, that sales funnel went away. And that was mainly one of our main sales funnels. So automatically we were in a very vulnerable and very emotional situation.
Sure.
And so that was something that, was eye-opening. So I think a lot of it is, a lot of business owners see it as not as profitable. You're not making as much money. You're being held to a higher accountability and standard. And sometimes they're unrealistic, and you're having to go through a process to get to the insurance company. Whereas if you just did it on your own, if you were not associated with a TPA, then you have a direct route to them. Yeah. So I think that's where the big controversy comes from, is that it's Big Brother, right? They're looking over you. But that's why I wrote the article what I did, because there's certain pieces in there a TPA is responsible for and why an insurance company hires them.
Yeah, no, and I love what you said. So one of the things that I think will resonate with everybody, and it's similar. I think what I see with TPA when it comes to contractors is I get the same kind of kickback when it comes to using Xactimate or their estimating software. It's like you either hate it, you can't do it, and a lot of times it boils down to not having a proper process, is not really understanding the big picture. But in general, I really liked what you said about. I guess I'll paraphrase, but you're putting all your eggs into one basket is a dangerous situation. We talk all the time when it comes to marketing your business that you shouldn't be doing that. In fact, you should be spreading the wealth, because there's a chance that one of those channels can dry up and another one will supplement your business. And the idea at the end of the day is have this perpetual pipeline of leads coming in to be able to grow your business at your accord versus being at the mercy of somebody else. So I think maybe, just to piggyback off the controversy of TPA, maybe that's something to do with it. You feel almost backed into a corner when when really, you should be kind of addressing all of these different channels and kind of utilizing them with what fits with your business. For instance, if you're a contractor out there that does a lot of water damage stuff and you use Facebook ads, and that's all you've ever done. Hey, I run ads on Facebook. I get people to call me. Well, Facebook goes down like a lot. So you got one day. I mean, I've seen it down for a full day before last 2 years ago. Well, that's a full day that your company isn't out there bringing leads in. So in general, it sounds like, having this as part of your business model as far as lead generation and getting work is probably a pretty good idea if you can successfully decrypt the algorithm, like it seems like you've done with this article and some of the training you have going on.
Yeah, I think you got to understand what it is, and this better than anyone. It's a sales funnel. Yeah. Just like you said, is digital marketing, digital ads, is that a sales funnel? It is. You're creating a sales funnel to be able to dump leads into your sales funnel of a company. If you're out and you have some business development, opposed to just doing those portions where you're trying to court people or get them to come in and allow you to do their work, that's a sales funnel. Yeah, if you're with the defense industry and you're responding to solicitations and you're bidding on work there, that's a sales funnel. If you're working with any kind of commercial lead generation, out there where they put these things, that's a sales funnel. So as a business, you have to figure out how thin can you stretch yourself, and how many sales funnels can you afford, because it's not cheap, right? It's not an unlimited amount of sales funnels. So you have to kind of figure out where you're going to operate. And I think that's a big misconception too, is, a lot of people don't have a business plan. And, when you start a business, everybody talks about a business plan. Yeah. Well, great. And nobody wants to do it because either they don't understand it or they've never done it before. Sure. And so they just kind of wing it. And we see that a lot. Well, a great business plan gets you started, but then every year you have to redo your business plan. Mm-hmm. You have to revamp it. And that's what I see a lot of people do not do. They don't look at every year. We just got finished reflecting on 2023. And we looked at what worked, what didn't work, how we were successful in some aspects, why we were not successful in others. And then we started to create our strategy for the next year. And that falls in with a bigger business plan that we create, which is a 3, 5, and 10 year. And so if you don't have something like that to where you're looking at it every year or seeing what's working for you and seeing what is successful, then you become a status quo.
Yeah.
And you just let things kind of happen as they happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people that get on TPAs, their lack of sales and marketing arm, they don't see the value of putting in money into a sales revenue, sales generation or lead generation. Man, that's expensive. I think we talk to people, and most people are doing that are putting in about 10 to 12% of their revenue back into sales lead generation. And that's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you look at most of your TPAs, they're going to be, less than 6. And it's almost a guaranteed sale. So, some people say, why should I go spend 12% when I can get almost a guaranteed lead and guaranteed sale for less than 6? But I do have a lot of parameters put on me that I got to abide by. Now you got to make the business decision. Are you willing to do that? Or do you want to steer away from that? Or can you have a mix of that?
Yeah, no, that was a great answer. And so when it comes to this kind of stuff, regarding, but go back to your article a little bit, because you do have a success model, right? And based off of the things that your experience, what's worked for you, what didn't work. Obviously it did work being a top performer. Walk me through that article. And I know we got some other stuff coming up there. I know you've got 3 main points with your algorithm that you give away. Walk us through that a little bit, and let's try to explain without giving everything away, because I know towards the end of this, we're going to talk about an event you got coming up and some additional training that we want to talk about. But walk me through this article. And I do want to touch base back on the mentality that you talked about before regarding business owners that just might not, they kind of get lazy. I don't want to say lazy in a negative way, but they kind of just go through the motions. They check a box, and we talk about it all the time. In fact, talking about having a business plan, I just published an article. I talk about this all the time. It's all these people with goals, and goals are great, but anybody can have a goal. You just go out and scream it up into the air, and good to see what happens. And that sounds like that's what a lot of people are doing when it comes to the TPA program. It's easy, it's done, it's set and forget. However, you're putting yourself in a disadvantage because you're only giving yourself one channel. If it dries up, you're done. So we talk about when it comes to goals, and I think this ties in perfectly with what you said, is that you got to have a plan with the goal, right? But the plan is a living document, right? Your business is going to change. So whatever best laid plans you have, you need to have checkpoints built into that plan to say, hey, we're going to reflect, whether it's yearly. You mentioned you guys are doing a yearly reflection, because you need to edit that plan to get what you're going. So you should be looking at this stuff, everybody listening. My last podcast episode was specifically about this, but have those checkpoints in place, because it's important. You can't just say, I'm going to be a $5 million a year business with no plan to back it up, and then never look back to see if you're even doing anything to get to that point. You just kind of say, well, we don't have millions of dollars in the bank. I guess it's not working. So, I want to get into that. And I know a long-winded way to get into your TPA success algorithm article that I thought was really cool. And if you could walk us through that, maybe touch point on your 3 points that you mentioned in the article. And then I've got the article, the link to it at the bottom here on cnrmagazine.com for people to check it out and follow up with it. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, first of all, Ben, this is only 3 variables of the algorithm. We do have a follow-on parts that we're going to release about 3 more pieces of the 3 more variables of the algorithm. And ultimately there's between 15 to 18 of these variables that make up the algorithm. And it's something that, we put it in bite-sized pieces. Hopefully you chew on it, look at it. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense?
Sure.
So, but in this article, one of the first things I think is very important is, figure out that number one, you got to understand what a TPA does. And a lot of people, and when we've asked a lot of questions about this from companies, what do you like about TPA? What do you think they do?
Yeah.
Everything. And almost everyone comes back and they say, okay, they provide us jobs. And I said, well, why is that? And they're just like, well, you sign up, they give you jobs. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's called a sales funnel. So, if you look at it, one of the biggest responsibilities and something that fulfills for a contractor is a sales funnel. Just like we were talking before, whether it's Google ads, Facebook ads, or you got business development, or you've got something out there that's attracting your leads, this is considered a sales funnel. And it should not be on your own, and it should not be your only sales funnel. So we want to make sure that's very, very clear up front. And so understanding that piece of it is great. And from a contractor's perspective, you're like, yes, I've got a sales funnel. I got jobs coming in, and that's all good. Now, the second piece of what a TPA does, it's also a program and project management office for an insurance company.
Okay.
And so you got to understand the TPA is in the middle between the contractor, and it's also in the middle between an insurance company. An insurance company, the TPA is handling their claims management. And from an insurance company, that's great because they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the personnel to do that. And so they outsource that, and they're willing to do that. Now, with that comes, some metrics. They want to hold that TPA to a standard as well, and they have to make that business decision: is that TPA doing what they want it to do? Is it meeting their requirement?
Sure.
And if a TPA has certain requirements to meet with the insurance company, of course they're going to put those requirements on you, and that's what a project management office does. If you look at some of these bigger companies, Belfor, some of the Serpros, some of the big conglomerates within the industry, I guarantee you they have something similar to a project management office that is putting parameters onto their people or to their companies underneath that. Lockheed Martin has a project management office. You look at those companies, Boeing, every one of them, and those are to manage the projects within the company. And in the same sense, every contractor who's an owner or has executive leadership or the headquarters aspect of it, even for the smallest company that's maybe 15 or 20 people in there, they are considered a project management office to their departments. So it's a concept that rolls downhill, and everybody does it. So as long as you understand that aspect of what a TPA is, I think it gives you a better perspective, and that's what I wanted to bring out in that first section of it.
Yeah.
Moving on to the second piece of it, I've been pounding my drums on this thing for about a couple of years, but you got to know what your product is and your value proposition. And many companies will say they provide restoration services, and I say I disagree. Every time you're providing project management as a service, and you're doing that to your customers. Restoration services are just something that you do to get there, and otherwise, if you don't provide that project management as a service to your customers, they can go hire a painter, a drywaller, a carpenter, anybody off Craigslist or Angie's List, and they can get them to do that, probably cheaper, because they don't have the overhead and everything else. So you have to understand how to communicate your value proposition. Not only are you doing project management, but also you bring in a security level to your customer. And I feel like we missed that a lot. And if we're not set up, one of the next things we'll talk about is a project management framework in my next article about how your company has to be set up to be able to deliver project management as a service so you can be structured correctly and be able to capitalize on the profitability. So I said that, that's been a big message of mine over the last year, 18 months. And a lot of times whenever people hear it for the first time, they're like, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. And so now then my question is, what are you going to do about it? So there's a certain thing that comes with it. You got to be able to set yourself up. And that's where we go into the third article. The third piece of this variable, this algorithm is you got to provide qualified expertise. And, I relate back to one of my special forces day, Green Berets day, of when I was selected to become a Green Beret and I went through selection. We went through, it was 500, I think there was a total of 569 of us that went through selection. And out of that, only 69 were selected. And that was just selected to go for the training.
Sure.
Right? And out of that 69, 7 of us made it through to the end.
Wow.
So look at your attrition rate, right? And, this industry has a large attrition rate for project managers, estimators, coordinators, everyone in this industry. And so you got to ask yourself, why is that? And a lot of times we don't communicate what we're looking for in an individual, or we're trying to look for something that doesn't exist. And we hire what we think is the best thing.
Yeah.
But as you can think about how you recruit, how you're qualified, you're reaching for qualified personnel, you're probably never going to get that unicorn you're looking for, right? So you need to look for the characteristics underneath the face value that fit in your company's culture. That people that are going to be a round peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
And somebody you can develop professionally, someone you can generate and grow. Ergo, growing businesses by growing people.
Look at that.
So if you can grow your people and give them the tools, the techniques, the skill set, and get them to understand what you're trying to do, you're going to be a hell of a lot more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like the genesis of all this, and I love how this ties into just the overall mentality that you need to have as a business owner. And I'll go in and I'm going to try my best to relate it to things that we preach here and we try to coach our clients on. Is you really got to know. It sounds like, again, the genesis would be just having a really deep understanding of what it is you're getting into. You have to know your customer. You need to know who they are, all their pains, all their wants, and the same thing that you need to understand who you are and where you want your business. So the genesis of this is everything I've been paying in a table for everybody and client wise, and it transcends marketing. It's really a general entrepreneurship kind of mentality that you have to take, is getting a really deep understanding of what the TPA work is, what you're going to use it for one way or the other, if it's going to be a means to an end where people just want to use it for now until they get to where they want to be, or they end up doing it the right way and they end up using it as another sales funnel, which they should, down to knowing your product, knowing what your value that you're bringing to the table with people. Same thing with, your marketing. We tell people, as far as your website goes and your outbound marketing is, your USP, what's making you the best choice to work with them, and knowing and understanding that. And then being the expert, positioning yourself as the qualified expert in this realm, and understanding, these things kind of work with each other as you build from the beginning, understanding what it is you're going after, building that plan that you mentioned, understanding who it is that you're working for, who your target avatar is, and then understanding who you are, and then being able to be that person that's there. And from your end, and what you've been mentioning, is it boils down to being a project manager and managing these projects properly. I do think a huge problem in this industry, in a lot of industries, we talked before, I have a construction company, and you can never grab somebody off the street. Yeah, there's some unicorns out there like you and I, right? We can do it all. We can jump in. But in most cases, if you don't have systems in place and you don't have processes built in, you don't know those things, that you spoke about in your article, like who it is and what you're doing and who you're working for, you're setting anybody up for failure. Unless you find that one unicorn, and they're very few and far between. Typically, if they're there, they're already owning a business and they're doing their own thing on their own anyways. So I can't overstate, and I'm sure that, as this goes on and we learn about the other 14, different points of your algorithm, that's going to be something that's going to be brought up probably quite a bit, building these people into the leaders they need to be able to get their company to where it needs to go.
Well, absolutely. And, we work with companies that are on TPA who are not doing very well on them. And that's where we see a lot of that. And if you're a company who's not doing well on your TPA, but you think you still need it and you're trying to grow that, or you're trying to make it where it's beneficial to you, reach out to us, because we do work on these things. Because it's one thing for you to read the 3 variables that we put into the algorithm on this document, but it's another thing to underwrite them. Yeah. And, I see a lot of business owners who, they get it. They've got this vision in their head and they know what needs to be done and they can do it themselves. But they have a really, really hard time of getting that message out to others and enabling other people to do that. And they automatically expect it. And I think that's one of the biggest deficits within a company, is when your owner or your leader feels like it's getting done, but it's not, because they don't have the KPIs. They don't have any metrics in there to measure people's success, and if they're meeting the marks, and that is crippling to a company. And one of the first places it's going to show in your business is on TPA work, because they hold you to a higher standard. And if you look at almost all the top performers and all the ones on TPAs that are doing really well, they all have a very, very good definitive process and project management framework behind them. And and they use it for all business. It's not just for TPA work. And they hold themselves to a higher standard. Yeah. If you're a contractor out there who just wants to get by, you don't want to be accountable, but yet you want to hold your people accountable, right? So it kind of goes hand in hand. You got to be able to have that type of culture, and you got to have that mentality, and you got to hire that qualified expert who's going to do it for you. But if it's just you understands this, that's one of your biggest problems as probably a company, is that you're not getting it to the other people who's going to be the doers out there and take it to the next level for you.
So what are your thoughts, and it's to dive into that a little bit, because we again, this stuff transcends the restoration industry. This is this business in general. What are your thoughts on, when you talk about having the owner or the leader in the company being the visionary and they've got this idea, do you recommend having that implementer that comes in and just kind of like is the one that's going to bring us about? Because I'm the visionary. I'm like pop, 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 pop everywhere. And, luckily for me, I've got a good team that can rein me back in, but then they're making sure that those things and where we need to be, again, if you don't have your goals, you don't have your KPIs, you don't have any of that, this is worthless for you to listen to. But if you do, what are your thoughts on having that extra person there that kind of are a team together that's going to make sure that this stuff is getting implemented?
Yeah, you got to know what your strengths are, your weaknesses, and you hit on visionary, implementer, very EOS type stuff. We have a program called the Restoration Operating System. It kind of mirrors that in some aspects of it, but more tailored for the restoration world, to where we work with your leadership team. And when we do that, we a lot of times we find, or self-discovery in some aspect from the questions we ask and kind of coach them along, they realize they're in the wrong slot, in the wrong position. And that's detrimental to a company as well when you got the wrong type of person doing that. If you're a visionary and you're the owner and you are also the general manager or you're running the company, and it's probably not something you like doing. And so you got to really sit down and ask yourself, and, I always do the quad chart. I have people do this all the time. And I say, take what you really are good at and like doing and put it in one section of their quad chart. On the next one, put the stuff that you're really good at and you're okay doing it with. And, in the third part, you got to put in this section in there where like, okay, this has to get done, but I'm not the best at doing it, but I'm doing it because I have to do it. And then on the fourth portion, you put in, I hate this. I do it. I suck at it. I just can't get it done. And it takes me 3 times as long as everything else. And just start from there. And when you start getting some of this stuff off your plate, you're going to allow yourself, and we hear it all the time, get out of the weeds on running your business and get above it so you can see what's going on.
Right.
What happens is if you're a visionary or you're somebody who's not good at implementing stuff, you're drowning and your people behind you are drowning. And I would probably venture to say that is, and I'm going to step on a limb here, but that is why you're having such a high turnover ratio. Yeah. Because people do not leave jobs that they're doing stuff for. People leave managers and leaders. Yep. And if they're not getting the leadership they desire, they're going to seek it somewhere else. And so now then you feel like you have a lot of turnover. And first place, look in the mirror. I mean, really look in the mirror, and look at your culture, because that is really what's going to drive that. So, and if you don't have a good implementer or somebody that's taking that ball and running for you, absolutely, that's one of the things you need to do. I know it seems probably counterintuitive. What you're asking me, go spend more money and hire somebody? Yes. Yeah. Because it's going to make you more money in the long run.
Absolutely. And listen, you talk about drowning. I call us, entrepreneurs plate spinners, right? You got that guy that has 90 plate spinning. So even when you do identify some of these issues that you're lacking in, or maybe some places that you need to fix, you've got all these other plates you need to keep aboard too. So it's difficult. So that's where somebody like you comes in, right? Trifecta Growth Institute can come in, do a little audit, and really provide that leadership training to build people up. And I firmly believe in what you do. I have my own coaches for digital marketing. We keep our fingers on the pulse of everything. And really, at the end of the day, it's all in a matter to run your business properly, but more so to serve your clients the way you should be serving them, because that's what is going to lead to you being successful in the long run and maybe being able to position your company to sell, which is probably what you should be doing. Talking to some guys that broker these businesses, I think like it's over 80% of these businesses aren't there's no succession plan. Right. Like they have nobody to take it over. Kids don't do it. It's a great thought, to have your son come run the family or your daughter come run the family business. But in most cases, that's not the way it works. So your job as an entrepreneur should be as a servitude to your people that work for you. If you have these systems in place, should be positioning your business to be able to keep them successful for the long run. And that boils down to the leadership. So Trifecta Growth Institute. I threw your URL down at the bottom. I know you have some things coming up before we wrap up today. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you have coming up? By the way, join Trifecta Growth Institute's email list. I did. That's how I found out about this article, and it got me talking to Rod again. But man, there's so many cool things that he's got coming up, and different nuggets of information that he just gives away out there, that if you're struggling in any of these things or anything with your business, I implore you to get in touch with them.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ben. Well, first of all, we've released our 2024 training schedule, and we've gotten a lot more companies that ask us to come in and provide training directly to them, and we do that, for 5 to 7 people. If you have that, we'll come to your location and get it done, and we've gotten a lot more of that now. So we had to pull back on a lot of our courses this year, but we wanted to still have open courses for companies that can't afford or don't have the number of people to get into that type of delivery. But also, if you're a bigger company and you want to audit the training courses and see what they're like before you commit to doing your entire company,
sure,
then that's what those are there for. And you can visit us on our website and you'll get that full training schedule.
And if you're not watching this on YouTube, sorry to interrupt. If you're not watching this on YouTube, because I forget sometimes, I'm so used to the video stuff. If you're just listening to this on one of the streaming platforms, you can visit his website at trifectagrowthinstitute.com. And if you look at some replays, follow us on social media, follow Rod. We'll have the link not only to his website, but to the specific article we mentioned anyways, if you want to learn more. Yeah,
thank you, Ben. The other thing we've done is we've created a lot more. We're starting to create a lot more e-learning courses, even for our certifications. In that piece of it, we've got show me the money, a collection piece of that, where you're for helping your people learn collections. We also provide a collection standard operating procedures for your business that you can brand that talks about it. We've got some time management pieces out there. We've got another one coming up with conflict management, issue resolution. What the goal is, these e-learning courses will allow you to reach your certification without having to attend them all in person.
Okay.
Now, you still have to pass the exam and all that to get to the certification, but we're trying to make it a lot more convenient for people on, whether they want to do it at night or during the weekend or something to that nature. So that's coming up. And we're releasing over 100 and something courses coming up here probably about the end of the month. It'll be up and running, but it's going to be time management, problem solving, business ethics, communication, customer service, a lot of the different subjects that we're looking for that smaller companies can subscribe to us with, and you'll be able to gain access to this for all your people to be able to provide them with some professional development. It'll be a great thing for your culture and that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to grow businesses by growing people. Mm-hmm. So if we can give you that avenue that you can provide for your individuals, it's going to help them create more of a business mindset. And so that'll be coming out towards the end of the month. And we've also got a big makeover going on our website. It's going to be a lot more user-friendly and those aspects of it. So that's all coming up. We got a negotiations class that we're going to be releasing later on in e-learning. We've got a couple of those scheduled for this year. And we're also hitting a lot of conferences, and you'll see us at Contractor Connection. And we'll also be down at Interconnect coming up here in a couple of weeks. And RIA, so we've got quite a bit of stuff coming down the pipe.
Rod, you must have good leadership over there or something to be able to handle all these things, right?
It's sometimes you gotta learn how to juggle.
No, I hear you there. I totally feel it. Listen, I appreciate your time. Everybody listening or watching, check them out, Trifecta Growth Institute. I've had the pleasure of meeting Rod in person at a conference. We're going to be doing the same thing this year. We've got a fully loaded 2024 for you. Some really exciting things coming up here at Ironclad Restoration Marketing, as well as the Restoration Rundown podcast. And it sounds like you do too, Rod. You guys sign up for Trifecta Growth's email list. In general, sign up for everybody's email list, even if it's a competitor, if it's a vendor, sign up for them. There's so much good information out there. Our team at Ironclad, we send an email every single day to our list of tips and tricks, and it's all free. And it's just to help you learn to run your business better, because an educated, well-run business is always going to be more successful, but you're going to get a better ROI out of everything that you do. Rod, it's really cool to hear that you guys are going to be running courses on everything with the business, a big one, getting paid. That's a huge issue in the contracting world. So I'm looking forward to seeing more about that. And I'm actually going to be joining on one of your next upcoming trainings to kind of learn a little bit more and sharpen my iron a little bit. However, it doesn't directly affect our business, but it's always good to know so we can help our listeners out there. Again, if you want to get a hold of Rod, trifectagrowthinstitute.com. I also dropped his email down below. It's scrolling RCRUCE at trifecta-growth.com. And reach out to Rod. He's a wealth of knowledge in their business. I can't say enough about them. Rod, I appreciate your time today. We're early in 2024. I hope it works out exactly the way you're hoping it does this year for you. And we're looking forward to having you on very soon.
Hey, Ben, if I could, one last thing.
Yep.
If they go to our website, like you said, at trifectagrowthinstitute.com, and they go to our blog, we provide free project tips on there. There's also some testimonials. And if you download and also there's a video in there about our ebook, Project Management, The Secret Sauce to Profitability. If they download that ebook, they're going to get another email with a direct code for a higher percentage off for our next training course that starts on February 1st. So
awesome. Well, I appreciate that. For them. Very cool. Listen, don't take advantage of it. You do it. Like if you're struggling at all with any aspect of your business, it's time to look in the mirror, and what better way to do so with a partnership with Trifecta Growth Institute. Rod, again, thank you so much for your time. We're going to talk to you soon, man. Have a great day.
You too, brother. Happy New Year, everyone.
You too. All right, everybody, that is it. Listen, stay tuned. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing this podcast with everybody. Check out ironcladrestorationmarketing.com. If you have any problems with your marketing in 2024, including putting together a sales plan, having somebody audit your current digital marketing, including your SEO, your pay-per-click, LSA, Google Business Profile stuff, all the important things that you need to be omnipresent with your restoration business and get the most leads and sales from the internet. That's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.